welcome everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar on the wonders of shorebirds. We're very excited about this one. My name is Christy Spire and I am the team leader of our nature stewardship team at Green Adelaide, and I have the pleasure of introducing this network of webinar presenters to you each month. So I'll tell you a little bit more about this one coming up, but just always like to start with acknowledging the country that we're meeting on, Ngadlu Tampanthi, Ngadlu Ghana, Yatanga, Imparinthi, which translates to it's good that we acknowledge we're meeting on Ghana land today, and we pay our respects to everyone working across country now and in the past, and everything that we are learning together and working together on across from the coast and marine all the way up into the hills. So thank you for working with us, Ghana, and for leading us in the ways of how to care for country in a more genuine and long-term way. So thank you. This is the third instalment of our series for 2026, and we run these to help share the great happening across Adelaide to help it to be cooler, greener, wilder and more climate resilient. For those that have been to some of these before, you'll know that this session is being recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel at the end of this, so you can share it with your friends and you can catch up if you've missed any part of it. We will have a Q&A at the end with Marianne, so please stick around for that and pop your questions in the chat box, or there's also a Q&A function now within Teams, so encourage you to use those functions because you don't have microphones today. So today we're celebrating 10 years of Adelaide International Bird Sanctuary with a special webinar, The Wonder of Shorebirds. We're delighted to be joined by bird enthusiast and member of Friends of the Adelaide International Bird Sanctuary, Marianne van Trigt. Stretching more than 60 kilometres along the coastline north of Adelaide, the Adelaide International Bird Sanctuary National Park, Winaityinaityi Pangkara, is a globally significant site at the southern end of the East Asian Flyway, a migration network that supports millions of shorebirds across the globe. Each year, tens of thousands of these birds rely on our coastline as a critical place to rest and refuel. What a beautiful story. In this session, Marianne will take us into the fascinating world of shorebirds, exploring their remarkable long-distance journeys, the habitats they depend on, and the important role that this sanctuary plays that you might not be aware of. But before we get started, where did this all start for you, Marianne? We're very curious to understand how long you've been a bird enthusiast, and when did you fall in love with shorebirds in particular?
Hey, in relation to birds, I pretty much grew up with birds. We had birds in our home, and aviaries full of caged birds, and I used to breed and show budgerigars as a child with my father. So I actually always had a love of birds, and Australian birds as well, which we also had in our backyard and also visiting our backyard. With the migratory shorebirds, I've only just really discovered them in the last 15 years, so I'm pretty new to them. One time walking along the beach, I saw a bird with a little flag on it, and I thought, I reckon that might be important. So I took down the details and endeavoured to find out, whether this bird was of, any scientific significance. And I got some details back from the people that actually banded the bird, telling me it was a little red-capped plover that breeded on that beach. And they also asked me whether I'd like to be interested in becoming a volunteer. And from there, look at me now. They then all showed me the migratory shorebirds, and I was, very much hooked.
Yeah, fabulous. And has that all been stemmed from here, or have you travelled with the birds anywhere to other locations?
Well, that's an interesting question. Actually, last year I travelled to Alaska to look at the migratory shorebirds in their breeding grounds, and just encountered a totally different side of the birds and many species I'd never seen before, and I left a bit of my heart there. It's a pretty awesome place, and it kind of put a full circle picture to the migratory
Yes.
shorebirds for me. Yeah.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, that's amazing. Yes, to have that whole circle and to see where they end up. Yeah, fabulous. Well, I think you have prepared some slides and a further conversation for us. So I'll let you share that now. And I'm sure everyone's keen to learn more with you.
Thanks, Christy. So first of all, I'd just like to thank BirdLife Australia for the use of some of their slides in this presentation. Migratory shorebirds are world travellers. However, globally they are in decline, and there are, millions of these birds around the world, but as I said, globally in decline. But some of these birds actually do come to our local shores. And I'm going to tell you today a little bit about those birds and why they come and why our shorelines are important to them. We'll be talking about their wonderful journey that they undertake, and also some important considerations of how you can optimise your experience and the experience of the birds that are visiting the sanctuary, and also how you may be able to assist the Friends of Adelaide International Bird Sanctuary with some of their activities and habitat restoration, and attend some of our upcoming events and special events that we'll be holding during 2026 due to our 10-year celebrations. Now, the Adelaide International Bird Sanctuary was proclaimed in 2016 as they found that there were significant numbers of some species of migratory shorebirds that were visiting our shorelines. The Adelaide International Bird Sanctuary National Park has a Kaurna name pronounced Winaityinaityi Pangkara, which means country belonging to all birds and the land surrounding those birds. The sanctuary and its surrounds are culturally significant to the Kaurna people, with cultural sites and culturally significant species. And the migratory shorebirds have been used through the years as markers of the seasons by the Kaurna people. The Adelaide International Bird Sanctuary is located along a approximately 60-kilometre stretch of coastline along the Gulf St Vincent, from Barker Inlet near Port Adelaide to just south of Port Wakefield, totalling an area of almost 15,000 hectares. I'm also going to focus on the migratory shorebirds today. I think it's also worth mentioning some of the other significant flora and fauna that can be encountered in the Adelaide International Bird Sanctuary. We have the beautiful bitterbush blue butterfly, which has a very specific host plant, the coastal bitterbush, which we, through the years, have been working to restore and increase the plantings of these bitterbush for the habitat of these butterflies. So hopefully in the coming years, we'll be seeing more and more of these butterflies in the sanctuary. We also have a very specific subspecies of the slender-billed thornbill. The species that we do get in the sanctuary is a vulnerable species, so they're not seen in a lot of areas, and it's always a very exciting sight for our birding enthusiasts. And on the lower left there, you have the very impressive sand goanna, which are one of the beautiful reptiles that can be found within the sanctuary, and always an amazing sight to see. Now, you'll notice very specific landscape in the sanctuary of a lot of low-lying vegetation, and a lot of that will be the colourful mosaics of the samphire, which also give the coast its name, the Samphire Coast. These plants are forever changing throughout the year, and always a delight to see the changing colours of these plants. In Australia and globally, shorebirds are in decline. One of the main reasons is loss of habitat and feeding areas, but also climate change and disturbance, and also human disturbance. So it's important these birds have a great habitat, and the Adelaide International Bird Sanctuary does create a haven for the migratory and the resident shorebirds of the area. We host up to or over 20,000 migratory shorebirds each year on our extensive tidal flats and freshwater wetlands, and coastal salt marsh. So the vital importance is the habitat and the resources, the food that they have, and their availability to roost safely with minimal disturbance. Some of these birds that are visiting our shores travel from as far as Siberia and Alaska, some distances up to 13,000 kilometres. The birds will arrive in September, October, and generally depart between March and April. So just in the last few weeks, the majority of our birds have departed. This is some examples of the habitats for the shorebirds, primarily coastal, but also wetlands, tidal flats, salt marshes, and artificial salt ponds. The Adelaide International Bird Sanctuary coast is along Gulf St Vincent, and the northern Gulf St Vincent is known as an inverse estuary and has long exposed tidal flats, which the shorebirds require. And it optimises their chances for good feeding zones and also roosting zones. And you also note that there's a lot of low-lying vegetation. These birds really like to have a great 360-degree view so as they can ensure protection from predators. The migratory birds travel along what's known as an international flyway, and there are 9 international flyways for migratory birds throughout the world. And they're a geographic region that supports populations of the migratory water birds throughout their annual migration cycles. The East Asian Australasian Flyway encompasses 22 countries and supports over 50 million migratory water birds. Now, as you can appreciate, as we're talking about global travellers and many countries, it's prudent to have joint conservation efforts, and Australia has joined with neighbouring countries, China, Japan and the Republic of Korea, with bilateral agreements for coordinated conservation efforts, and which those efforts have acted to support in a positive way the habitats and the ongoing ability for these birds to have as smooth a journey as possible throughout the many countries that their journey takes them. So the shorebirds of the Adelaide International Bird Sanctuary, as mentioned, upwards of 20,000 migratory shorebirds, which are also known as waders, visit the Adelaide International Bird Sanctuary. And our area is a terminal point or an end point for their journey. So after flying their 10,000 to 13,000 kilometre journey, most of them will have at least one intermediary stop as well. But whilst these birds are flying, they're flapping all the way, continuously flapping. They don't soar. So that gives an extra, I suppose, dynamic to their journey, to understanding how amazing their journey is. Once they arrive on our shores, they'll stay for approximately 6 months, where they'll recover and then feed to gain weight for their next migration. And one of the reasons that these birds utilise our breeding grounds and our shorelines is that their breeding grounds are inhospitable for most of the year. As you can appreciate, the the window of opportunity at those latitudes in Alaska and Siberia are only hospitable for a very short 6 to 8 week window. So shorebirds, what are shorebirds? Shorebirds specialise in living between the land and the water. They roost on the edge of the land and the waterways. They don't swim, they don't dive, and generally they don't roost in trees. They also don't have any webbing on their feet. So if they are floating in the water and unable to touch the ground, they're unable to get out of the water. So unlike an albatross, they can't rest in the water and then take off again. So they need wetlands, shallow water and exposed mud flats. And as you can see in this picture, the sizes of their bills and the length of their legs and colours all differ. Generally, when they're on our shores, they're looking a fairly dull colour, but then once they transition to breeding plumage, some of them can be really spectacular. Gulf St Vincent is very rich in shorebirds. Of the 18 resident shorebirds in Australia, we have 11 residents. We have 25 migratory species of birds that visit our shores, of a total of 37 which visit Australia. And we've had 16 vagrant birds which are reported, which are irregular visitors that are very special. And if there's a vagrant bird visiting our shorelines, the bird enthusiasts are certainly very excited and will make much effort to come and see those. So the resident shorebirds, if you have a look at this photo here, there's a wide variety, and some of them that you may be quite familiar with and may actually even be nesting on your local beaches. They breed on our beaches in summertime. But also our local resident shorebirds are also in decline. There's getting more and more pressure on these birds as more people flock to the coastlines and utilise coastal space. And I would say a tip to people to want to optimise the opportunities for these birds is to adhere to signage when you see that there are birds nesting on the beach, and to perhaps change some of your patterns to optimise the bird's opportunity for breeding success. Put your dogs on a lead and walk on the shoreline if possible. Now, the majority of our migratory birds that visit the Adelaide International Bird Sanctuary come from the Northern Hemisphere. However, we do have one east-west migratory bird from New Zealand, which is shown in the lower left corner, the double-banded plover. And all of these birds are coming from areas which are quite cold areas, and that is the reason why they undertake their migration to go to more pleasant climates to spend the majority of their time. And whilst we're not covering a lot of the species, the individual species in today's talk, I just thought I would show you the smallest to the biggest of the birds that visit the sanctuary. The smallest being the red-necked stint, which averages about 15 centimetres, an average of 30 grams. They can get a little bit heavy. They can go up to 40, but that's really plumping it out. And but yeah, imagine that. That's a very small bird to undertake such a journey. The red-necked stint was also a key species in the establishment of the Adelaide International Bird Sanctuary, having significant numbers of these birds visiting our shorelines. The far eastern curlew is the largest migratory shorebird and our largest bird that visits our shores, approximately 60 centimetres, and can weigh an average of 900 grams, but they have been recorded up to 1.3 kilos. The far eastern curlew is also a critically endangered species, with about approximately an 80% decrease decline of the entire population since the 1980s. And unfortunately, those figures are starting to be replicated with other migratory shorebird species across the world. And so this is just a depiction of the different physical features of the birds, and the physical features of these birds, i.e. the length and shape of their bill and the length of their legs, dictates the foods that they source. So this slide here is showing the bill and leg length, which assigns the foraging location and the prey. So often when you're out in the sanctuary looking at the birds, we will often see a variety of species that are feeding together. And the reason is they're all different shapes and sizes, their bills are different shapes and sizes, and they're feeding on different food sources. So they can all stay together, and if there's a larger group, there's more security in that group as well against potential predators. So the size and shape of the bill and the length of the legs can dictate the food that they're eating. The smaller birds with the shorter bills will have a visual sourcing of prey, so they'll be finding their prey by looking with their eyes and in picking at the ground and just below the ground for their food. The birds with the larger bills and the longer legs that can go out into the water a bit will be probing those bills into the substrate, into the mud, and they have sensors in the tips of their bills that can actually sense movement of the prey beneath the surface. So they have a sensory sourcing of their foods. And these are the types of foods that the birds are eating: snails and mussels, crustaceans, small fish and crabs, amphibians, worms and polychaetes. And the availability of food throughout the sanctuary and throughout the mudflats and shorelines dictates the distribution of the birds. So where the food is where the birds are. And all birds, as mentioned previously, have a unique niche food source. In recent months, or over the past year, we've had impact in relation to as a result of algal bloom, which is a natural occurrence, but there are also some man-made occurrences as well: pollution, industrial pollution, chemical runoffs, etc. Even driving on beaches, which can impact the sand, impacts that substrate, can actually have detrimental impact on these beautiful food sources that are living beneath. It's important to mention also that if you are crabbing or sourcing shellfish, to keep to size and bag limits, and don't add to extra pressure on these shorebirds that are using these resources as their food. This is an interesting picture. This is the same species of bird, a great knot, and the first picture to the upper left is a bird just shortly after arrival, after migration. So he's looking quite thin, deplete of fat. You can see a large amount of its legs, and its wings are looking a bit tattered and torn. A successful feeding 6 months on the shores with high energy quality food can result in looking like this bird, just as he is just prior to departure, looking quite robust, shall we say, not seeing as much of its legs, and starting to move into the breeding plumage. So getting those really fine strong feathers to undertake that migratory journey. Now, some of these birds, the great knot in particular, has a requirement to increase their weight by approximately 70% of their arrival weight to undertake the successful migration. The redneck stint will increase their weight by about 28% to ensure that successful migration. And that success relies on abundant, good quality food sources and also minimal disturbances. So in the southern hemisphere, the migratory shorebirds arrive in Australia in September, October, after flying up to 13,000 kilometres that one way. Most of them will have an intermediary stop along the way, or one or two intermediary stops along the way. They'll spend their summer months here, which is around about 6 months of the year. And as mentioned previously, they're resting and fattening up to ensure an ongoing migration, which in turn, successful breeding adds to the ongoing of these species. In March, April, the birds begin their flight back to their northern hemisphere breeding ground. So our birds that have been staying over our summer months have just recently, most of the birds have departed. Prior to migration, the birds undergo physiological changes. That's to optimise their chances of a successful migration flight. So they decrease the size of their feeding organs, the size of the reproductive organs, and their non-essential leg muscles. They'll increase their flight muscles. The heart will grow to supply oxygen, and their blood thickens. If the departure weight isn't sufficient, they will stay behind, and that can be due to disturbance, if they're using too much energy to reposition themselves due to disturbance, and also reduced food sources, which may be an impact that the birds have encountered due to our recent algal bloom. That's something that the scientists and also there's a group of people that do regular shorebird monitoring within the sanctuary. We do coordinated counts for about 9 or 10 months of the year, and we go out and monitor the birds at our individual sites. And that data can provide a lot of information to scientists on the birds, where they are, the viability of the birds. So our next count, I'm sure a lot of our counters are really going to be interested to see how many birds may be overwintering or staying on our shores this year. And that would be the most likely impact be as a result of the disruption to their food sources as a result of the algal bloom. But that information is yet to come. Also, another interesting fact with these migratory shorebirds on their migration flight, it is said that during the flight they rest half of their brain. They're superb athletes, and they've got all these tricks up their sleeve to optimise their opportunities. Now, the birds, as I said, have just recently departed, and they'll generally, as I mentioned, do it in a 2-stop journey. They will depart to their staging site, what we call their staging site, their intermittent rest site of approximately 7,000 kilometres. So the first stage of the journey will be 7,000 kilometres, and a lot of birds end up at the Yellow Sea along the coastlines of China and Korea. And they'll actually spend 4 to 5 weeks there replenishing their fat reserves. And then they'll go on to their final destination, and that may be another 4,000 to 5,000 kilometre flights. And they'll be timing the arrival of their flights in their Northern Hemisphere breeding grounds to coincide with the melting of the snow. And so they will fly low, and they will also use the winds as to assist their journey. It's all about conserving energy and optimising that opportunity. When they arrive in their breeding grounds, it's constant daylight, and the plant life and the insects are just starting to evolve and flourish. On arrival, the birds will partner, they'll mate, incubate their eggs, and then care and defend their young. These birds do not actually feed their young, but lead their young to food sources. Due to the harsh conditions, these birds will spend a maximum of 8 weeks in the area, and the adult birds will depart to return to Australia before the young are able to make that journey. I think that's a pretty wonderful fact right there. Now, as you can see in this picture, the chicks and even the adult in the previous picture are really quite camouflaged in their environment. I think there's at least 3 chicks in this picture. And if you were, 15, 20 metres away, you probably wouldn't have any chance of knowing that they were there. So the chicks are well camouflaged, and are covered in down, and their eyes are open when they hatch. They're able to walk and to forage on their own within the first couple of hours. And as I said, the parental care is basically distracting predators and leading the chicks to food. The chicks will increase their weight up to 80% until their body mass is about 55% fat. And around about 4 weeks after the parents have departed is when the chicks will be able to begin their first migration, and they'll be navigating by instinct and flapping constantly. So they'll navigate with using lines of polarity, the position of the sun, moon, and movement of the stars. Now, these birds, if they undertake at least 16 years of migration, they would have travelled the distance to the moon. And if you think of a redneck stint, 30-odd grams, that's a pretty amazing feat. This is another slide just to let us all appreciate the athleticism of these birds. The most recent record-breaking flight of a migratory bird occurred in October 2022, when a bar-tailed godwit flew non-stop from Alaska to Tasmania, 13,560 kilometres over 11 days. Now, I'll say it again, flapping all the way. That bird was 5 months old on its first migratory flight. And it's said that the bird lost over 50% of its weight during that journey. Now, after spending a bit of time in Tasmania, the bird travelled on to its final destination, which is New Zealand. And if you're wondering how we know that data, the bird in the field as a chick, the bird was fitted with a very small, less than 5 gram satellite tracker that recorded those details. Now, with these birds, there's a lot of important information about the risks to these birds, because it's not only on a global level, but also, as mentioned, on a local level as well. Our resident shorebirds are also being impacted by loss of habitat, climate change, pollution. Disturbance by humans is also an increased pressure, and that's something that we as individuals can do something about. Just the presence of dogs on beaches can be a deterrent and a distraction to birds, especially on our local shores with our resident hooded plovers and red-capped plovers breeding. If they're spending time chasing or defending their chicks from dogs, they're utilising energy that would be better served with their chicks. And so, don't be under any illusion, but when you're out there watching birds, the birds are also watching you. You can have this picture at the very top here, the grey plover is sitting there quite alert, its head slightly tilted, and it's looking and listening. So there's something potentially in the area that was causing it to just check out what was actually happening and make a decision whether or not it should make movement. But when you're out in our shorelines, the birds, the larger the bird, the less tolerant they are of people getting close. So I would say please enjoy the birds and observe from a distance. And if you do get too close, they will take flight. So the Friends group, the Friends of Adelaide International Bird Sanctuary, also affectionately known as FAVES, are also celebrating their 10 years. And our group was established to support the National Park and the rangers with their activities and habitat care within the National Park area. When the migratory shorebirds are in town is when we actually concentrate on getting people in front of these birds, and we'll use our spotting scopes and binoculars, and we also have ID brochures to help people understand the birds and know what they're looking at. And they're always very fun times. When the birds have gone, we start concentrating on habitat restoration, planting activities, and also the very vital cleanups. You can find out more about our activities and upcoming events and increase your awareness and stewardship of the sanctuary and the beautiful ecosystem that we have on our doorstep. Volunteer, conduct some citizen science activities, and join us to experience the sanctuary. Nat will put those details in the chat for you. And actually, while I remember, there's also some citizen science activities coming up there. If you're interested in the mudflats and all of those beautiful critters and creatures, the mollusks and polychaete worms and all of that are living in our mudflats, you can attend a mudflat monitoring workshop that will be held shortly, conducted by Green Adelaide and Flinders University. So Nat will be putting that detail in the chat lines for you. Oops. It was certainly welcome anyone to come and join our group to volunteer and experience the sanctuary and find out more about this wonderful little place that's on our doorstep. But also volunteering, it's good for your well-being and it's good for your soul. So I encourage everyone to come and join us. I thought I'd put this photo in. This is a flock of red knot, which are a medium-sized shorebird, and it's an example of some of the sights that you can see when you're just visiting the sanctuary. I would say that it is, if you're coming to the sanctuary for the first time to view the shorebirds, that the best way to do that would be to join a group like Friends of Adelaide International Bird Sanctuary, and we can ensure that you get some quality views and have a bit of an understanding of the birds that you're seeing, and help you out with some identification tips. We have great spotting scopes and binoculars to help you with that. As part of our celebrations this year, we're having a added activities to our normal monthly activities, but one of those that are coming up in collaboration with the Port Environment Centre, a screening of the film Flyways, the story of migratory shorebirds. It's being held at the Semaphore Odeon Star, and if you'd like to join us, and Nat will be putting those details in the chat for you to register. That's the end of my presentation. I'd just like to say that I think each of us will have our own thought on what the wonders of the Adelaide International Bird Sanctuary are. Is it the fact that over 16 years, some of them will fly the distance to the moon? And when they're doing that, they're flapping all the way. Is it a non-stop 11-day flight by a 5-month-old bird on its first migration? I think they're very wonderful, and I really enjoy sharing the story of the birds, and look forward to seeing people in the sanctuary if they're able to. But it is also, I think, just important to remember that it's also, with migratory shorebirds, it is a story of decline, and that if we remember that positive choices can result in positive impacts for our bird life on a local and a global scale. So hopefully this awareness and making a few small changes can have a huge difference, as I said, on a global scale, and that's a pretty powerful thing. Thank you.
Very powerful. Thank you so much, Marianne, and yeah, thank you for taking us on that journey, and all those, those amazing facts, as well as all the small things that people can do that affect this this global phenomenon. And I hope more and more people come to sharing your love for shorebirds and can see them arrive on our shores next time. We do have one question in the chat here from Adrian. He was asking around, in general, it seems like migratory birds are smallish. So does this mean they can fly a longer distance as they're lighter? I mean, obviously they put on weight while they're here, but is that kind of part of the design, I suppose?
I think you're pretty right there. The birds are purpose-built for what they undertake. Yeah, but having said that, you'd be surprised at the weight of a pelican. They're actually quite light, even though they were a pretty
large bird.
Size.
Oh, really? Yeah. Yes, I mean, as you were describing all of those things that their body undertakes and does before they migrate again, it did sound like there were these purpose-built machines, or birds in this case, to fly like that, and just amazing that all those triggers are within their body system as well. So yeah, fantastic. Fascinating. Are there other key areas around Australia for migratory birds? I know that we talked about at the start, your trips around the world, but are there other key sites around Australia for people to be aware of? Yeah,
absolutely. There are across the coastline of Australia. Well, even in South Australia, the Coorong is a big and important area for our migratory shorebirds. We've certainly got areas on the eastern seaboard there, but the main shorebird mecca would be Broome. For our migratory shorebirds, so they get hundreds of migratory shorebirds per year, and people that are super interested in migratory shorebirds and committed would head down to Broome to have a look at the birds there. They also get some different species there as well that we don't see, on our shores as well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And do they head there after Adelaide, or is that before? What's the timing?
They live around about the same time. There's certainly slight differences. They don't have as far to travel. Some of our birds, I mean, I have seen, some birds in the sanctuary here that have, spent time in Broome, and I know that because they'll have, some birds have flags on there that you can read. You can identify the individual bird, and by sharing that information, you can find out the details of where the bird has been seen previously. So I've seen birds in the sanctuary here that have spent time in Broome and then flown down to South Australia, and then the one bird I saw, actually, I had the full journey, departure out of Broome, then to China, and then on to Russia, and you could see that timing by following the reports of the sightings, of birds. So that's a really special record for that bird.
Yeah, fabulous. So you don't actually have to travel yourself, you can follow the records. Yeah, fabulous.
That's right.
You
live vicariously
all those awesome
through
people
the birds.
monitoring
Yes.
around the world.
And that just, I suppose, talking about monitoring, that's another form of citizen science. If you know what birds you're seeing and you're out and about looking at birds, you can record those birds, in one of the bird recording apps. Bird Data would be the prime one that I would use. Yep. And record those sightings, and you never know how valuable that data is in the long term. Yeah.
Fabulous. I think there's some keen beans on there to know where are the good spots to drive to and watch the birds. I suppose what you encouraged is for people to come out to one of your events, because then they can actually use some of your equipment and that type of thing. But do you have some of that information online on your group site or anything like that, in terms of the best spots to locate or watch?
Sure, well, absolutely. There are several good spots. St Kilda is a great spot if you're not very if you might have limited capacity for walking, because you can actually just kind of drive up to the bank and actually see the birds from the car. So that can be a great spot. The Thompson Beach, areas around Thompson Beach are really vibrant for shorebird viewing, and further north, Bold Hill is also a great area. There are also other areas around the coastline in York Peninsula as well that you will see these birds. They're not, but the primary area for these the concentration of the birds is along this 60-kilometre stretch. Yeah.
Excellent. I've got a few more questions here in the chat for you as well. So they're coming through in two different boxes that I have to check. So some just interesting things, around the connection between the bird sanctuary and the adjacent salt mines there. This comment is, I understand many of the shorebirds rely on the northern sections of the Dry Creek salt fields that has water pumped into the northern extent so it can flow south. In the future, is it hoped that these northern areas be restored with tidal flows? And would this impact the birds? Do you know anything about that, Marianne?
Well, there is some work happening in relation to that. So it's certainly a watch this space area, I would say, and keep your ear to the ground. And also Dr. Emily Lydon will be, is sharing information in relation to the project work she's doing under the Shifting Sands project. So I would suggest that person have a bit of look into that. Yes, so there's a lot of work going into the possibility of taking positive action for increasing habitat opportunities for the shorebirds.
Excellent. And there's a few questions. I think some people online have helped to answer people that are asking these ones, but particularly around the global relationships between different countries to ensure that the migration is unimpeded. There are some commitments, isn't there, by countries around the world. And yeah, I think Tony Fladdy's had sent a link about so the other question was, do the countries involved in the Flyway Agreement fulfil their commitment? So there's some more information on that, but I don't know if you want to make any comments around the importance of those global relationships.
Oh, yeah, it's extremely important. For years there was quite a lot of land reclamation activities occurring in the Chinese coastlines, and just in recent years there's been some halting of that activity, and that's directly related to those bilateral agreements and the negative impact it's been having on the birds. And as I said, the world is watching when these things happen. So if there's a big impact, you don't want to be letting, I suppose, the world down. If we lose some of these species due to the actions of your country. As I said, the positive news is that some of those land reclamation activities have been halted in those countries to ensure these survival of the species.
Of these species. Fantastic. And now another little question. So from the global to a query just around the migratory patterns. Do you know why the parents leave their young and start their migration without their young?
I think it's a bit of survival of their species. The adults are fit and able to undertake their migration. The chicks are staying for another 3 or 4 weeks, and generally and the reason for that is that the chicks don't have the capacity for that prolonged flight at that time. They're just developing a really quick set of feathers, their first set of feathers. Generally what will happen, that the adults will leave. The chicks are more independent anyway. They're that little bit bigger, that they know a bit of the lay of the land, who to watch out for. So the parents go, they're going to ensure their own survival as the optimum, because they can, continue to fly the flag for the species, if you like, and their chicks, can come afterwards them, and they are actually, as shown with the tracking of that bar-tailed godwit, that they are successful in their migration. It's a pattern that works for them. So once the chicks are able to, that they'll move to a more suitable climate and spend a little bit more time, grow those feathers a little bit bigger and stronger, and then undertake that full migration flight. So it's part of that evolutionary process that over thousands of years has refined the species and how they act, and the patterns that they have to, as I said, ensure these the survival.
Brilliant. Fantastic. Well, I think we've covered off on most people's questions, and there'll be further details, and the links that have been shared in the chat today will be sent out in an email for those of you that can't always access them and might just be listening along to this presentation afterwards. Please, watch out for that email in your inbox. And huge thanks to you, Marianne, and the Friends of group that you're a part of for your passion and commitment to these unique creatures and the habitat that they need. And thank you for sharing that passion and those key messages with everybody online today. And I'm sure many people will listen to this after today as well. So thank you so much for jumping into this type of format where you can't actually see people, which is always an interesting one to manage as well. Next up, our next month's session is all about urban heath monitoring, but from space. exploring emerging satellite technologies on Tuesday, the 19th of May. So hoping you can join in with us for that session as well, and please join the group with all these other awesome events that were shared as well to celebrate the 10 years of the Adelaide International Bird Sanctuary. Such an awesome celebration, and congratulations to everybody that's been involved in protecting and setting up a bird sanctuary here in Adelaide. So I encourage you to get out there and enjoy it, and be taught some new skills by Marianne and the whole group as well. So thank you all for joining us today, and we'll see you next time. Thanks so much, Marianne.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.